Hey everyone, welcome to Atlantic Bushcraft Ventures, episode 292, I believe. Today we are going to talk about, let's see, is that mic working? It looks to be. We're going to be talking about how I equip my motorcycle for off-road trips or just any adventure, honestly. This came from last week. When we were talking about how to modify your vehicle or things you need to do for your vehicle. So yeah, that's where we're going to go. Robert is not going to join us tonight, so it'll just be me. And so we'll see how long this one goes. I know I can talk a long time about this subject, but honestly, we'll see. So, yeah, to sort of a bit of background for anyone who's wondering, I chose an adventure touring style motorcycle, slightly older model of a V-Strom, Suzuki V-Strom. And so I got a V-Strom 650. And that I find gives me plenty of power to get off the road into some backwoods stuff, and also enough to get me down to highway. So there's a reason I chose that vehicle. I think we may have spoken about it in other episodes. So what does that mean, though? What is the result of that? I wanted something that could get me out there, get me doing stuff. And so that was the exciting part of that, I guess. And just 1 second. I'm just going to click on something. Yeah. Yeah. So, very first thing, if you're going to take it off-road, same as the car, there's a screen in front of me that turned blue, made the lighting bad. Is a good set of tires. So I have equipped it with some 50-50 tires, which gives me really good pavement ability as well as some off-road ability. That's more than adequate for everything I plan to do. And I think that's a really good point to start. Beyond that, good evening, Red Sand Adventures. Yeah. I mean, like I said, you need a decent set of rubber under your vehicle. If you're going to go off-road, you're going to hit more rough, sharp rocks. The likelihood of a flat tire goes up. Good tires really protects you from that. So it's an important thing to have. But beyond that, what have I done? So one of the things, when I bought it, it was used. It was already pre-equipped, and I can't take all the credit for this, but it already had solid panniers on it, which it gave me a fair amount of storage. And not only that, storage that was nice and low, which keeps my center of gravity low, helps me with maneuverability, and helps prevent me from wearing myself out. And they became very important because I realized it's an older bike. It's a used bike, and it has its issues. And one of the issues is electrical gremlins. And so the very first thing I started doing was fixing those. And I found a few wires that had been maybe overpowered for the connectors, and they burnt the connectors out, and they had to bypass the connectors. So I have picked up a butane soldering torch that I keep in there, some crimps and a crimper. I've recently got a better crimper that I'll be keeping in there. I also have a jump starter device, a little tiny thing. It's not much bigger than my cell phone, but it'll jump start my bike. I keep that in there. I keep a set of tire spoons in there so I can change the tires. And I also have part of the original toolkit. All that's still there, but a few additional sockets and tools so that I can get the fairings off. I can get, do most quick checks that I need to. So I can get things apart, and I can probably jury rig it together if I had to get out. I have a few feet of spare wire so I can bypass wiring if I need to. And those crimpers and solders means I can probably fix electrical issues if they come up. The more recent one has been headlights. I think I have it fixed now. But that's something to keep in mind. Like, whatever you're taking back there, it's a good chance that you may have to do some maintenance back there. The ability to pop the tires off. I do plan, I don't have them in there now, is to get some tubes that I can stick in there if I need to, because I have tubeless tires. But I do have tire repair kits, and some of them I can repair a fair-sized gash from the inside if I needed to, which would give me a little bit more protection if I end up in a situation. And hopefully can just get me at least back to the pavement where, I have more options to get help. Calling a tow truck into the off the main road is going to cost you a lot more. So knowing that, I also, this is not really a part of what I take, but what I've set up is my SUV has all the other tools I could need. So everything I don't normally carry is left in there. So if I have to call home, my wife can take the SUV up, and I'm much more prepared to repair it from things there. And that means there's some more spare parts back there, a slightly bigger toolkit, and a few other odds and ends that you just wouldn't necessarily always take. I also take extra oil, ability to clean and lube my chain up. And so those things all come in quite in handy. And so that's the big thing for me. I don't worry about winches and I don't worry about a lot of other stuff, but the basic kits. And a friend of mine, and Jim, if he's listening, maybe at some point he'll say hi. I don't think he's listening right now, but maybe in the future. He mentioned to me that you should know everything you can fix on your bike and have the tools set aside. So as I find a tool I need for the bike, I add it to the kit. And so far that kit's pretty reasonable. Other things I keep in there that are quite useful. There's a full bike cover, so I can use that. It can also act as a tarp or a sheet if I need to throw it on the ground when I'm working in less than ideal situations. A full set of coveralls to sort of keep myself a bit protected, or if I need to. There's a first aid kit always in the bike. I also tend to keep a folding saw and an axe in panniers. And by no means are these things full. In fact, all this kit pretty well only fills one side. And the other side I can keep for other things. And when I go to leave, they do pack. And I also have a tank bag that I keep a few things in. And that's where my GPS or my InReach would sit. Usually a spare battery charger for my phone in case I need that. There's extra cords, and I've also re-equipped because I have two options for tank bags. One of them is fully set up to take just my full drone setup if I want to take that. Because, not all of this is about, what if things go wrong? What if I get an opportunity to take an awesome shot? Or what if I want to get a picture that's really hard to get from the back of the bike or for where I can easily walk? The drone can go out there. And so I can get some neat shots setting the thing up for that. Because I think in the end, it's not just about getting there and back. It's about getting there and enjoying your time. That extra storage, just what comes with the bike, allows me to take a few other things should I choose, including but not limited to fishing gear, a fishing rod, or that type of stuff. There's other toys I take along, sometimes a slingshot, things like that, just stuff that I can practice with. So that's sort of it for the bike itself. Above the rear tire back seat, I have a large plate mounted on mine. Came with it. I was really pleased to have it. And it allows for a top box. I've re-drilled the plate to move the top box back when I'm traveling, and the thing that gives me is a lot more room on my back seat for a bag to carry all my camping gear. So I have I think it's 100-liter Wild Heart bag, and that is more than adequate for me to throw a few days clothing, a few days of food, a stove, a complete sleep system. So that would be your sleeping bag, your shelter, and my favorite is obviously the hammock. I've talked about that in the past, but I have room for a tent. I could even take my hot tent and my stove back there and have plenty of room for an adventure. I probably won't take the bike into snowy, icy conditions if I can help it. So, but even a cold evening like, we're getting now here, it's more of a fall, it's not winter quite yet. That would be an enjoyable trip. So that's what I've set it up to do. Yeah. So the big things, and I'll definitely go through these right quickly. Tools, all the tools you would expect that you may need on a trip. Now, you're never going to think of absolutely everything, but think of the things that are most important. And right now, I know electrical problems are a problem, so I have enough electrical equipment. So crimps, wiring, soldering, and black electric tape that I can fix most minor things if it's just the wiring issue themselves. And yeah, and I've recently fixed a few. I'm also planning to lighten the load on some of these wires by putting LEDs in and get rid of it. I'm also looking at adding auxiliary lights in case I do leave my headlights. I have a totally separate system of white light that I can shine up front because that's the system I've had the most problems with. Yeah. The other thing I can carry, and I'm looking for a good solution, and I know they're out there, it's just whether I want to spend money, is spare fuel for that vehicle. I have tanks for my SUV, but taking the extra tank on the motorcycle, I don't have a perfect system. And I know the Rotopax makes a fairly nice idea, but I don't really have a place I want to strap that. And I don't want to stick it on the outside of the panniers because that's where it's most likely to get hit if I ever fell, or even makes me that much wider. And it doesn't stick across the back. So it would probably have to be under my tank bag, or not my tank bag, my duffel bag, and on its side. And I'm not sure that's what I want. I've also noted I have enough room on my left-hand side behind my pantier, which is about the mirror image of where the exhaust is on the other side, for a toolkit. So I've got an idea of what I want to put there. And they make some, and I tried pricing up the making of one from yeah, High Drifting Sport. What was I saying? I tried looking to see if I can make one of ABS pipe and just some caps. And honestly, it's going to cost me more than to buy one off AliExpress or Amazon. So haven't really decided what I want to do with that. But yeah, that's kind of what I set up. And honestly, all the stuff really works for quads, dirt bikes, anything else. Go through it and understand what tools you need and put a quick little toolkit together that you can have, and then figure out, is that going to get you there? You can oftentimes throw stuff on a backpack. I try not to use the backpack because it's more heavyweight. And when I'm working the bike around, I'd rather it stable and on the bike than flopping around on me and possibly causing more of an issue. But yeah, like I know that Robert takes his ATV and he has a similar setup. I could generally, but the one on my bike is actually quite large. My range, I think, is a little over 400 kilometers. So it hasn't been a huge issue. And what I have been doing is, for that one there, the main vehicle or the stove I take is my my MSR multi-fuel, which means it will burn gas. And I can also put gas in the fuel canisters for that, but they're only about a liter a piece. So I won't really fill my tank off of that. I'm not sure what the stock size of the tank is. My buddy with a DR, so I had the DL V-Strom, he has a DR. He did go up for the bigger tank, and that gives him, I think, a very similar range that I have already. So yeah, a larger tank is often an option. I think I would also have to swap out my fairings, and believe it or not, for me, finding replacement fairings has been almost impossible. They're just not made. So I've had to repair my fairings in a couple of spots where they did break. And one of the spots, I think, is literally from vibration of going down dirt roads and stuff, which was annoying, but, I managed to fix it. So it wasn't bought to be pretty. It doesn't look horrible, but it's not as pretty as it could be. But if you're going to be driving it down dirt roads and stuff, you shouldn't expect, perfect paint and not a single scratch or scuff on it. So I bought it to use it, and it's going to be used. But that's the big things. Yeah, make sure you have the tooling that you can use to repair it. I can't really take additional traction devices on a bike. It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But the axe and the saw means I can cut down pieces of wood, and I can rig things up to sort of help me get over a spot. And where I have a very narrow path, I don't need to build a big bridge. I just need something, 4 or 5 inches wide, and I can get it across most things. So, um, you know, I wouldn't try to go along a log because I don't have the skill. But if I can split the log and get it flat and make sure it's not tipping, I could trust that for a lot more. So the only other thing maybe is a shovel to dig out a bit of dirt and really plant some stuff in, or to help get rid of some sand or mud that's in your way. But yeah, that's sort of what I take, sort of what I use. Obviously, with a smaller vehicle, you can't carry what you carry in a full-size vehicle. So I'm not worrying about additional large power supplies. I'm not taking larger stoves. I'm taking pretty lightweight, compact gear and enjoying it that way. The beauty is, though, the places I can get that I probably would never try to take my car. And that's not to say there's not places that the car would still be the better option. So some of the really loose rocks and steep climbs, honestly, a 4x4 all-wheel drive vehicle would feel more secure trying to go up them. And there's spots that I have gotten my bike and I was like, I would be so much more confident in my car. But there's other spots where I've been driving, I was like, man, I would not want to take my car there because it's so narrow or it's so rough that I couldn't weave through it. So it's situational. But yeah, bigger tank, especially certain vehicles, certain bikes. It's almost a must if you're going to be doing any adventures that your range is too small. But I actually have a decent range. And some of the guys I go with have to carry fuel just to stay within the range of where I can go. So it's something to definitely keep in mind. And there's some good trips to carry some large distances where fuel may be not available or not as available as would be ideal. What else? Yeah. So tools. Oh, I keep a multimeter as part of that electrical kit. So I'm fully well equipped for electrical issues. And especially with newer bikes where a lot of things are computer driven, you might not be able to completely replace the computer, but more often than not, your problem is a ground or a broken wire or a broken connector. The bikes themselves are pretty sturdy and capable. So, and I'm not worried about filters clogging up on a trip. I just replaced the fuel filter and air filter in mine, so it should be good for quite a while. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. Maintain your vehicle. Make sure you do your maintenance fairly regularly. Oil changes, filters, things like that. If they're all in good shape when you leave, you probably won't have to worry about them. But if you leave it till partway through the adventure and realize, I should have done that a while ago, you don't know when you're going to get out, and it may be your issue. The big thing, I think, the last thing I say is do a good walk around on your vehicle. Like, I know we don't do it enough. Walk around and take a really good look at it before you leave. Check everything. Check your fluids. Check your brakes. Check your lights and make sure they're working and functioning well. If possible, take spares of what you can. Sometimes some of the bulbs are small enough you can have a little kit of those. Yeah, never hurts to have a spare set of spark plugs too, if you can do that, or make sure they've been changed relatively recently. Beyond that, yeah, after that, your vehicle's good to go. Down extend to your regular gear, and it's really not much different than what you would take for a good hike or a canoe trip if you're taking one of those things. So when I do those trips, I'm running very similar gear. The bag is the only thing that changes. The duffel bag works much better for the bike. I've used this same duffel bag for my last canoe trip, actually, and it was functional. And anyone who went with me was probably laughing at me right now because it wasn't the most comfortable thing to carry in the world, but it worked for me. The portages weren't that bad. I was able to do it. When my buddies had to carry it, though, they were not as pleased. They did moan a bit about it, and I understand why, because it's not the ideal method, I guess. So, yeah. So that's kind of it. I won't go much longer unless there's questions, which, I mean, there's only a couple of people listening when I last checked. So that's okay. Yeah. So same as we often say, get out there, have fun, enjoy the adventure. Yeah. and let us know how it goes. What do you do? What do you look for? What's your thing? What's your favorite mode of getting out there? We've talked about a few things here. We've talked about our trucks or SUVs, that type of thing. We've talked about our motorcycles because me and Robert both are into motorcycles. He's talked about his ATV. I've talked about my canoes and kayaks in the past. These are all great methods. The one method I haven't really tried that I'm interested in, if anyone's wondering, is I think a good e-bike could really do it. If you had a little bit of a storage rack on that, you can carry a bit of gear. That can get you some great places. The only concern I have with it is your range. And I think that's even doable because, if you look at it, some of them have like 90 or 100-kilometer range, especially if you're only using it as a booster and it's not as the main way to get in and out. You can get to some pretty cool spots. So that's a good option. And the other thing I'll quickly throw before I take off, you don't need to have an adventure bike. You don't need to have any particular type of bike. Any machine that you have that can get you somewhere can be your adventure rig. So yeah, take a look at what you have. You don't have to go out and buy, the new $15,000, $20,000 motorcycle or the $60,000 truck or SUV to do a trip. You can do an awesome trip on almost any motorized vehicle that can get you somewhere. There are plenty of roads that you can be used and you can camp off of that you can get with your average car or even less than average car if that's what you have. So yeah, there's no excuse. I've seen trips you can do with using local public transportation and a slight hike from the bus. So there's no excuse for not getting out there. But yeah, some interesting bikes for sure. Yeah, I mean, there is. Even some of the paddle bikes. I've seen a couple now that have like 2 wheels in the back and a little bit of storage. And I thought, man, you could do a lot with that. And baby carriers, you could throw. I had one from when kids were small. We never used it much, but I kept it. And had we not moved, I was planning on putting a more solid base in it. Just take a piece of plywood, cut it in a sort of house shape to put onto the axle. And I think I could easily throw a decent backpack and a bit of more stuff in there. And I seen a guy who did it with the election signs, the corrugated plastic, and he made one that you could sleep in. It was 6 foot long, and just the doghouse shape, and put a couple of blocks under the 4 corners to keep it level, and he could crawl in there and have a nap. And I think he maybe even had a couple of candle lanterns in there to heat it up. So you'd be surprised what you can use to get out there. But it's for all of it, try to keep some decent rubber on it. Try and keep your maintenance up, and keep a basic set of tools that you can repair things that are likely to go wrong and are repairable. Some things you cannot fix in the field. They do need to get fixed elsewhere, and just realize that that's going to be your limit. And at that point, if you go to that breakdown, you make the decision: is it worth towing out, or does it now live there? And I don't not condoning littering, but sometimes it's not feasible safety wise to get something out of there, and maybe you just need to bail completely. But I hope that never comes to that. Do your best to always clean up when you go in. But yeah, thank you for everyone who's joined. I see a few more people coming. The numbers went up there right now. I can't see who's there, but yeah, I'm going to take off. This is 25 minutes. We aim for about 30 minutes right now. That's our new thing. So yeah, thanks for Sand Adventures. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys are getting out and enjoying it. I haven't been as much lately. It is raining almost constantly here on the West Coast, the wet coast. It's finally living up to its name. So yeah, thanks for everyone who joined. I hope you're having a great time. I hope you guys are getting out there, and I'd love to see what your adventure rigs are, what equipment you're taking, and how do you do it. So night all.